I'm focused on this theory cause it keeps me from this fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about Nicki Minaj coming for Gavin Newsom on the trans issue. He's still like doubling down on the ways. There's a clip circulating from a podcast, and so Nicki reacted to the podcast, and she's bored. She's done with the whole trans stuff and then pushing it so fiercely. And so that's kind of like the talk of the town right now on social media. And I think I mean she has more kind of right leaning sympathies, but a lot of people are done with it and not wanting to be as radical. But of course in California there's so many crazy people. But Gavin, he tries to I know he's such a prolific liar, but what he said on this podcast, particular podcast, was similar to what he said to Charlie Kirk about how like the trans sports stuff is like an issue of the heart, even though a lot of people disagree with him. But he said he wants to see more trans kids, so that's what everyone's reacting to. And so we're gonna chit chat about that a bit. Also, yesterday Tyler Robinson did appear in court, and he was talking to his lawyers at one point and smiling, so a lot of people are roasting him for that, and it doesn't look good. I was like, I don't know, I guess I'm still on the fence about like really showing his photo. I mean, he's alive, everybody knows what he looks like, and I guess his photo is going to be like everywhere, but you know, but I want to show you guys his tie because I think his fashion choice was interesting, because they're blue and pink, so I still think he's making some statements there. And that's my assumption about that. And it's just amazing to me that there are people who don't want to believe that a trans radical activist dude killed Charlie. It's so strange. It's so weird. Also, I was trying to avoid her today. But Allie Stuckey got into a back and forth. I did post the exchange on Facebook. And she said it was a real mask off moment for Candace. So I very quickly want to talk about that as well. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I think Allie has kind of cracked the code about how to address her. And I think there's two certain ways to kind of deal with her, because she does feed off of attention and she does feed off of drama and she loves it. But there's two things that I don't really think she cares for, is when she's mocked, and I think actual biblical corrections trigger her demons. So anyway, before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys, go blackteennies.com, check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you'd like what I do, please consider leaving a donation at the website, because it does cost to stream, run my site, all that good stuff. So if you guys can support, I very much appreciate you guys. You guys can check out different merch that's available on my website as well. So I recommend that you guys check that stuff out and, you know, and pick up something for yourself or someone that you know. You guys can also check out different books that I have, like my children's book, Bigger. There's a link in the description. I'll take you to my book website where you guys can check out some of my stuff. It's also available on Amazon, other stuff. But if you guys want a signed copy, you guys gotta get it through me. So you guys can do that if you follow the link. And Christmas is coming up, so if you guys do want that, especially for someone before Christmas, I recommend that you go ahead and pick that up. And I'm gonna have to go pick up some children's books and stuff for my niece and stuff, so she can continue to practice her reading. So just a little FYI mental note. And I suppose that's it for my announcements. Happy Friday, by the way. So excited. Got church tonight. I'm always excited to go to church. And some people are mad, annoyed that Charlie wrote a book about the Sabbath. And we went to a Shabbat dinner when we were in Israel, and they were like, "Don't use your phones down." Some people just left it on the bus. I kept my phone on me. I did not look at it or use it in the time that we were like celebrating the Shabbat dinner, but something that happened as a result of nobody having phones and everybody just sitting there and eating and having a conversation is that we had a full conversation and good dialogue for that time. Nobody's like zoning out, checking statuses and stuff. So people just winding down and taking that time to just focus on God. And Charlie, I assume that's what the focus of the book is, which is what Erica has been going around promoting, is a good thing. It's a good thing to wind down like that and just be like, okay, I'm not gonna get distracted by all these things that invade my mind and might get me down, might get me just distracted from just your divine will, Lord. Like, and just pray and read the word and study. I don't know if you found a church on Friday night to go to. We've always had Friday night service for as long as I've been alive. So 7 o'clock, we'd always call it Miracle Friday night service. So we've always had Friday night service. So have we put our phones away? I still have my phone. Not during church, except I do use the Bible app. But yeah, some people were just aggravated because I guess it sounds just a little too Jewish for them, I suppose. And unfortunately, there's a lot of folks who still dislike the Jews, which, by the way, that was one of Candace's attacks on Allie. So again, a real face off, mask off sort of moment. So anyway, let's start off with this clip of Gavin Newsom. It's a real clip, a short clip that's going around, making the rounds. But I recognize this sort of conversation that he had with Charlie a couple months back, because he kind of like recognized that a lot, like some of the trans stuff was extreme, but at the same time he was like comparing it to being out of step with your party and sticking by something as a moral issue. Like Charlie was talking about how he has convictions on the pro-life issue, about how there's no exceptions, except for like the life of the mother, and doesn't make one for rape, for example. And Charlie knows, like, I know that's not a popular position, or there's a lot of people who disagree with me even on my side. And so Gavin likened that to his issue with the trans stuff, and how he knows that it's unpopular, but he has a moral conviction that he claims, which I don't believe this man has moral conviction. So I mean, I guess his family. No, it's hard for me to believe he has moral convictions, but and that's one of the reasons why he's like, I guess, firm on the issue. And they've done a lot of stuff in California as far as the trans issue is concerned.
So we didn't get into trans sports. That's an issue no one wants to hear about, because 80% of the people listening disagree with my position on this. But it comes from my heart, not just my head. It wasn't a political evolution.
Your position being that
I don't think it's. I want to see trans kids. I have a trans godson. There's no governor that's signed more pro-trans legislation than I have, and no one has been a stronger advocate for the LGBTQ community. So we didn't get into trans sports. That's an issue no one.
Yeah. So people are dogging him for, like, we want to see, more trans kids and etc. Blah blah blah. So that's what people are reacting to. And Nicki Minaj saw that, I suppose, and had some words that I did share. The screenshot here of Chucky is what really caught my eye. I'm like, what's going on here? And she said, imagine being the guy running on wanting to see trans kids. Haha, not even a trans adult would run on that. Normal adults wake up and think they want to see healthy, safe, happy kids, not Gav, the Gav nots. Gav out. Send in the next guy. I'm bored. A lot of people think that Gavin Newsom is really a contender for the presidency in 2028. He obviously has those kind of inclinations to run and desire for power. But he has so many radical, horrific policies in California that he's obviously signed on to. That I just find it hard to believe that the rest of the country would jive on that. Now, I guess it would really also depend on who the Republicans run, because if the Republicans run someone crazy or someone they deem as really radical for the country or something like that, then maybe we're going to ping pong to a Democrat later. But it's hard for me to really believe that America as a whole would be like, we really want our country to be like the rest of California. Like, there's obviously beautiful locations in California and surfing and beaches and mountains and all hiking and all sort of things to enjoy in California. Glamour, except for hobo encampments and so on. There's lots of wonderful things that you might have enjoyed when you visited California prior to it becoming a hellscape. But and that's just me talking like from things that I've seen or read in the news. But because I haven't been to California myself, but I would be concerned about my car. I visited California and had to leave all the doors open and the trunk popped with a sign that says, please don't steal, there's nothing in here, or break my windows, there's nothing in the car to take. So those sorts of things they're concerning. Gosh, when he had the debate with DeSantis and he whipped out that poop emoji map thing, it was like, there's no way for Gavin to actually win that debate, especially with Hannity pulling up different stats that Gavin had to defend, the policies of his administration and what was going on in California, despite how terrible everything was. So anyway, it's just hard for me to believe that America would be so ready for that. But on the other hand, you have Sonny Hostin, who's like, Gavin is so pretty, he's so handsome, and I've seen Mike Cernovich refers to him as a panty dropper. There's not mine, but I guess there's ladies out there who fancy him. He so gives me 80s villains vibe. He's so I've already said this before, but I so believe that he would pay money to alter the results of a children's karate tournament. Like Terry Silver. Like, he gives me like a Terry Silver kind of vibes. If you've seen the Karate Kid or Cobra Kai, that's the vibe that I get from Gavin Newsom. He's not like a classic romantic type of handsome to me. He's very much 80s villain. That's the vibe, and he seems so slimy. But he does have an advantage in the sense that he will shamelessly lie about everything wherever he goes. So maybe he can appeal to people, and he's willing. He's done his podcast, which seems like a weird thing for a governor to do. It just seems like you got other things on your mind that you ought to be attending to. But that's how a lot of people reach people. And so they're relatable. They got a podcast or whatever. And he invited Charlie on his podcast and, tried to make it seem that he wasn't as nuts as he was. and to agree with Charlie on some things that he probably wouldn't normally agree on and find some middle ground. But yeah, Gavin, I I don't think he's gonna. I think a lot of people are very concerned. Like I showed you guys that video of that woman, who's going around questioning different Democrats. It's a black woman. She's a lesbian. She was in a gym, and there was a trans man. I mean, sorry, a trans woman who's a man who identifies as a woman, who was in the locker room, and so she was upset, and she went viral, and so she has been making it her business to go around to different town halls and question the Democrats there and hold their feet to the fire on the trans issue. And so we watched a video the other day of her, Ro Khanna, confronting him about the issue. And she also went after Scott Wiener about the issue. And when she talked to Ro, she's just like, Republicans are good to go on this issue. So it's the Democrats that are holding it up. And so I'm like, you better go, girl. And I think a lot of people don't want to confront. There are people who push back, but confront her in the way that maybe they confront other people, because she's a very aggressive woman who's black and a lesbian. So she ticks off a couple of their boxes. But man, they're very defensive on this issue. Anything LGBT, they're very defensive on. I saw a video today. I was grappling with whether I wanted to show you guys or not. It was a woman who was at a meeting, and a Yolo County Board Supervisors meeting, and she started reading off sections of a book with a lot of and it's a book that's in a library with a lot of like sexual content, teaching kids, like has about butt stuff and have like mastectomy scars and just all kinds of crazy stuff in it. And it's graphic, and I don't think I'm going to show it to you guys because I didn't want to see it when I was scrolling this morning. I'm like, well, I thought we were going to wait till June to see this stuff, but I do appreciate the parents who go there, but and point all this stuff out. But what was funny about the video, that I'll just describe this to you guys in the video, is that as she was reading this stuff, there are people who were one person walked by and was just kind of like making coughing noises to try to distract her from her presentation. And there are people like fake sneezing and coughing and stuff because they don't want parents to be aware of this stuff, and they want to interrupt the presentations, or they want to mock these people who are concerned about it. So it's just really sick. It reminded me, and his name escapes me, there's a man who wrote a book on that really formed a lot of our opinions about how we teach sexuality and things like that. And the data was taken from, there was like a chart that's in the book, and in the chart the data was taken from a man who worked for the government for some reason, and I think he was like a land surveyor or something, and he would molest children, and he would chart his experiences with the children and how they would react sexually. And that chart of abuse was put in as data in this book. And so I thought about that today as I was watching this particular video and seeing all these people like offended and annoyed that this woman is just like, hey, all this sexual stuff should not be exposed to our kids, and how there's this history of perversion and abuse that has been pushed to say, no, kids need to learn about this stuff as early as possible. We need all the sex education and stuff in schools, etc., blah, blah, blah. And I think children should know about their bodies. I think you should teach your children enough to know that, so they know about stranger danger and things like that. But it just gets weirder and weirder and weirder all of the time. All the time. I will spare you the details of the actual book. Oh boy, I just scrolled and saw a little bit more of it. Yeah, you guys can find it on X. I just don't want to. Y'all need to see that. I didn't actually see like any like a live like man stuff. It's illustrated, but I don't know. I just feel like we lived in a different time when I was younger, and I was much protected from things like that. Um, I didn't see like something like that live and in person until like I went to art school and we had eventually we had naked models, and people got a kick out of how I guess innocent I was. And my dad was so mad. He was like, he couldn't have worn shorts, and they're like, well, I guess they felt like we needed to see the human form, and he was so mad about it. But there's people who believe that your kids should just be exposed to all kinds of junk, and just be careful about what your kids are learning in school, stuff at the libraries, and so on. And some of these really sick books, you'll find them like in different sections where there's banned books. But it's funny, I never see Abigail Schreier's book in these banned book sections. I don't see that. Or How Harry Became Sally. I don't see those in banned book sections. Just as really, really all this queer stuff. That's what I see. That's what I see. Anyway, moving on. I don't know if people will listen to Nicki, but we'll see. We'll see. I just think it's more likely, as far as the Democrat nominees, that it's going to be someone like, I don't know, Alyssa Slotkin, or my governor, Gretchen Whitmer. There's gonna be somebody like that. I just don't think it's gonna be someone who's like the opposite end of the spectrum, as far as like what people are thinking about the country. I just don't think it's gonna be California. I unfortunately we could be facing another kind of pendulum swing. I don't know, but I think that's too far of a swing. I think people don't want to go. There's pockets of America that are ready to go that nuts. But if people elect a radical, it's not going to be because they know that they're radical. It's going to be because they've kind of hidden it well, and they happen to be a radical. And I just think it's going to be more like somebody like that, not Gavin Newsom. Anyway, there was a big decision yesterday. I believe that they are going to allow cameras as far as in the trial. And Tyler Robinson did show up for trial yesterday, and he was smiling. People were noting, and it doesn't look great for him, obviously. And he wore a curious tie. I think the reason he had on this tie is because it's trans colors. And some people just thought he didn't look like he had much remorse. And I think that's probably the case too. I mean, you guys are going to see, I guess, images like this are going to be historic. They're going to be around forever. Eventually, maybe there will even be like, I don't know, Netflix specials and so on. So I guess there's no point in really being like, oh, I'm not going to show this stuff. It's just going to be everywhere. But if you note the tie, you'll see that it is pink and it is blue. And I think it's interesting because those are the trans colors. And he was dating a trans woman, and he killed Charlie Kirk because he believed that he was hateful. And he shot him during a question specifically about trans violence. That's when he got shot in the neck, during a question, a debate about that. And I don't know if he was like, oh, this is a great opportune moment to particularly shoot him then, but it is when it occurred. And that's, people immediately thought it was something pertaining to that issue. And it happened to be the case. For people who say the official narrative doesn't make any sense to them, I don't know how it doesn't make any sense. Charlie was even tweeting. He was talking about trans violence. A lot of people were. We were having these conversations, and need to continue having these conversations as well. Trying to find, there was a tweet from Charlie before he died about this issue, about trans violence. Just seeing if I can find it real quick. But he was on his radar, obviously, and didn't like what he had to say. And they believe that if you don't affirm, here it is, that is violence. So this was August 27th. Charlie was killed on the 10th of September. Update: the suspected Minnesota school shooter included a Defend Equality sticker in his manifesto that included a rifle over a trans flag. He also allegedly pursued a legal name change to Robin, his apparent trans name. He wrote "Kill Donald Trump" on the weapon used in the school shooting. First Nashville, now this. How many times makes a trend? So he asked that question, and then he became a victim of trans ideology. It wasn't a transgender person who did it, but he was dating a man who believes that he's a woman, and he hated Charlie Kirk because of his hateful rhetoric. He believed that he was hateful, so filled with hate, he had to take him out. He had a shot and he took it. So, I guess I really need to know why people don't think that it's true. So, it doesn't make any sense to me. Again, they have him on surveillance videos. I was talking to my sister earlier today, and when it happened, Charlie was killed, and there's like, oh, they got that guy, that crazy guy who wanted the shooter to get away, so he claimed that it was him and it wasn't him. And there was just so much confusion, and we're following things. I don't have live TV that I watch, so I'm like following things online with my updates and stuff, just sick to my stomach, waiting for an update of them catching the guy, and then nothing happens like on the first day. And I'm so concerned. I'm like, what if this guy, I didn't think he was like a paid hit or like some mega conspiracy or whatever, but I'm like, what if this person killed him and then gets on a plane somewhere and just leaves the US, and they just like slip their fingers and we don't find this guy. And then there's going to be all these conspiracies, and there's not going to be like any peace on this issue, and his family won't get, proper justice, and they, and they're just all these kinds of crazy things, narratives and so on that go on. And I'm like, man, what if this guy gets away? And then another thought was like, what if this guy ends up like in a forest somewhere and takes his life and we don't find his body, because a lot of these people will like try to self-delete. And I'm like, what if we don't find him? Or what if they do find him and we just don't get a lot of answers? So all these things are swirling in my mind about how this could escalate and just be really dragged on, I guess, and not be good for Charlie's family, not be good for the country, and so on. And it's just really crazy when you have these conspiracies and things that loom around when you don't have answers. So then FBI wasn't, it seemed like they weren't getting anywhere. And then they made the decision to start, just sharing some of the information with the public, which ended up being a good idea because Grandpa recognized his gun. The family recognized Tyler. I believe his coworkers was like, that looks like him. So people who knew him began to recognize him. And Grandpa wanted to know where his gun was. So Dad started texting Tyler. So walls started closing in on him. And Tyler's family ended up convincing him to turn himself in. And they have, I know a lot of people are suspicious about the 30-06. We don't know anything about I don't believe we know anything about the tip of the bullet. So we don't know if it was like a soft tip, hollow point, things like that. It is very possible that a 30-06 would not go through Charlie. It's not like a movie or something where everybody like blows up instantaneously or whatever. That's not how it works. It could have stopped in his neck, and that's apparently what happened. And MLK 30 was hit by a 30-06, and when that bullet hits bone, a lot of unpredictable things can happen. It's just not accurate to say that it wouldn't happen or it's impossible for it to happen. But if that's where your mind is at, that it's just impossible for it to happen, I guess my question to you would be, why would the feds plant that particular gun? Mind you, it's an old gun. Why would his grandpa, why would the FBI plant that gun if it's so implausible that the bullet would do that kind of damage? Or wouldn't have done more damage, rather. Why? Why would they plant that gun? And so what is the accusation? That someone else was there and shot him? It just seems absurd. Like why would Charlie be important enough to do all of this? The conspiracy doesn't make any sense. Like why would they plant the text messages that is so easy to disprove? All the cell phone carriers and all these people are going to be in on it for what? For the Trump administration? Does that sound plausible to you? It's just too much to cover up. For what purpose? For what purpose? Like a lot of stuff that comes out and we're like, oh, the government was lying to us, like hiding like the Twitter file stuff. It was interesting, but was it stuff we didn't know? How they tried to hide some data about the COVID stuff, but was it stuff we didn't know? Like the very early on they told us about, I remember there being an article very early on about how it didn't stop the spread. Like so something, like I know they were downplaying some things like the effects on women's periods and things like that, but like so many of these conspiracies that people are throwing out there, like you can't make up all this stuff and cover all this stuff up like seamlessly. It doesn't make any sense. Why would the government plant the gun? There's cameras everywhere, cell phones everywhere. The cell phone companies would have to be in on it. The defense would be able to find that stuff out if the FBI was faking the text messages to get this confession. The parents would have to be in on it. Why would the parents be in on sending their kid to death? He's going to get the death penalty. Why does any of this make any sense? And again, for what? Why would Charlie Kirk be that important? If it was because he was turning on Israel, he's a strong advocate, but if you go to Israel, like, they care about people talking about them, but at the same time, they're kind of, I think, a little oblivious to how bad it can be. Like, I just don't believe they would be that pressed about Charlie Kirk. Narratives would probably just be like, oh, he flipped like Candace did, or oh, he flipped like Tucker did. They just, they'd be like, well, that sucks. But they'd still have a war to prosecute and so on. Like, it doesn't make any sense. What will be the motivation for taking him out? The official narrative makes sense that a trans shooter killed him. It makes perfect sense. I saw someone today say, see if I can find it. It's a libertarian chick. Who works with Brad Palumbo. Hannah Cox. Hannah Cox said, Candace is, as much as I detest her, asking the questions most normies are asking, and the most conservative ink tries to silence her, and the louder these questions will get. You're not going to shame people out of seeing what they are seeing, and the movement Candace made into someone who won't be silenced. These are the consequences of the movement they built. And so I saw people retweet and was like, Candace's different conspiracies are really stupid. Like, what are you talking about? And but someone had said, the amount of non-political friends of mine sending me clips of Candace Owens' show has skyrocketed since Charlie's death. The only thing they know is that the official narrative smells fishy. They'll turn to anyone pointing that out. And I said, the official narrative is not fishy. You have stupid friends. Just lay out the evidence. I was talking to someone the other day and they're like, well, just, the idea that he jumped off, he disassembled the gun after shooting it and then jumped off the roof and then reassembled it and left it in a towel. And I'm like, where did you get the idea that he disassembled the gun on the roof after he shot Charlie and then reassembled it later? Where'd you get that idea? I'm like, did you read that in an indictment? They didn't. They heard it somewhere. Probably from Candace or something. People are very invested and they just don't know the facts. The actual story of what happened makes perfect sense. And maybe people need it to be something bigger because it was such a destructive thing. Maybe a lot of people are just doing it for entertainment. I don't know. Someone who's been on my page on Facebook a while to really like still kind of be pro Candace. I don't know how much they follow my content or really like my content, but they hang around a lot. No, this person said they like 95% of my content. They agree with me. They just disagree with the kind of stuff. And so they tagged me in something that someone said today. Let me read it to you. It was a post by a woman, I screenshot it, named Patriotic Blonde. And she said, I get it. Talking about a grieving widow is not pretty. And I held off, but her coming for podcasters overdoing their job and making videos is gross. This woman sold merch. Is that what she's coming for? People doing podcasts and doing their job. Your job, unless you're just a conspiracy pusher and that is your official job and you're just like, I benefit from lying, so that's what I'm going to do. She wants the lies to stop, the crazy conspiracy. Like, there's a way to speculate and talk about things that are responsible. But Candace is accusing everyone that that Charlie knew of, like, murder. It's not the same thing. These people don't even, like, represent what's going on accurately. She said this woman sold merch at her husband's funeral. Candace Owens purposely has not sold any merch, even though we have asked for Charlie merch. What? Wow. She has been doing her same job for over a year now. Plus, Candace took off 2 full weeks to mourn Charlie and lost money those weeks. So to bleep on Candace because she's doing her job she had prior and nothing extra is beyond BS. Erica Kirk, I so badly wanted to like you and didn't want to think someone could be part of her own husband's death, but it's not looking good that you're coming for people who are actually trying their hardest to get answers to a sus assassination of your husband. Why would they want Candace to make Charlie merch? That is not her face that she owns. She doesn't own his name. So why would you want Candace to make Charlie merch? That's weird. Weird. They also did not sell merch at Charlie's funeral. The big Turning Point Memorial thing was not the funeral. The funeral was a private event, apparently with the family, something that Candace was not invited to. And then they buried him at a location that Candace does not know, but claim is a Catholic funeral and memorial, and because he was Catholic. So what do you mean she sold merch at the funeral? That's not what happened. And I know people are like, oh, well, they had fireworks and all this stuff at the funeral. It was a memorial. Charlie loved that stuff, and Turning Point put it together for the CEO who was fired. All these people came to honor Charlie and the family and so on. And Erica bravely took the stage, just like she bravely addressed the nation, to just let people know that the vision will not stop and they will continue. But to tear her down like this, like she sold merch at the Turning Point event to honor Charlie, but Candace hasn't sold Charlie merch. That's crazy. And saying, plus Candace took 2 full weeks off. She to mourn. Candace immediately hopped on conspiracy trains and started accusing people of being in on Charlie's murder. She did the video the day after he died, and then on the 11th she did an episode, and then on the 15th she was back at it, saying that BB lied and was so mad about BB's letter and so on. I think it was because I started going through her podcast. At first I was going through her YouTube, but I had clicked through her episodes. I'm like, no. So I went through the podcast to look at the dates. There was a section where eventually it was 2 weeks, but not at first. And how do you know it was even more? And it might have been to refocus her narrative. And as far as she lost money, she's married to a British lord. She's independently wealthy from all the stuff she had anyway. And she's still making a lot of money. Those videos still accumulate views just because she didn't make more in those 2 weeks. This is a crazy thing. So I had replied to the person, and I was like, she didn't sell merch at the funeral. And they're like, oh, that's what you want to focus on? I'm like, what do you want me to focus on? One lie at a time. If I write out a paragraph, you're going to miss some stuff. So let's handle one lie at a time. It's why this madness? So I made a lengthy video on TikTok that I posted, that I will probably post on Facebook. So, and maybe YouTube, I guess. But so I don't want to talk about this a lot. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. This is funny. Let me show you this. Ain't nobody got time for facts. Let's talk about this Allie Stuckey back and forth really quick. So she has been mad at Allie because Allie did she had did a video saying, do not outsource your critical thinking to other people, just like think, use your brain. And Candace took issue with that. And then Allie did a video breaking down scripture on how you are supposed to conduct yourself and the danger of, spreading lies or gossip about people and falsely accusing your brethren of things like that. That's not a biblical thing to do. Gossip is also not, something you're really supposed to be doing either. And she just broke it down scripture by scripture by scripture. Okay. And it was so good. If you haven't seen the episode, it was really good, really biblical foundations there. And Allie Candace was so mad about it. And I'm like, I knew she'd be mad about it. So she did reply to her and wrote something on Instagram, a reply to Allie. I didn't cover that at the time. But she did mention Allie again the other day. And she said she was annoyed by people like her using the Bible. But what she said afterwards, beyond that, was really crazy. So let me read it to you guys. I was trying to find it it's on X, but let me just read the tweet. I'm sorry, this was on Instagram. Please stop acting like you were super close to Charlie. Yes, you spoke at events and were colleagues and allies in this movement, but you were acting like you were super close to him, and it's annoying me. Really, girl? You didn't know about the Catholic thing because you never had that sort of personal friendship with him. We have all been, which Tyler Bowman from Turning Point said that Charlie talked to Allie more than he talked to Candace. And all these people who were around Charlie and close to him said that he was not becoming Catholic. He said he was a evangelical right before he died. And he laid out a good biblical reason, according to him, on why he would not become Catholic. I don't mean to offend my Catholic audience or whatever number that is. I'm not sure, but he was not becoming Catholic. Okay. But she's been trying to own that while denying that, while owning that. It goes back and forth. We have all been friendly over the years, as we have all appreciated you as a hard worker and a mother to children. This kind of sounds like you're not that big of a deal. Keep working as a cog in the machine. Podcast slave, like you're like you're just a worker bee, Allie. You're not that special. That's what that's giving me. That aside, yes, you are very clearly a part of a psychological operation, as you are quite sinisterly trying to use Bible verses to tell people to ignore their intuition. I might add the fact that in this very post, you are tossing around a literal psychological term to try to pathologize people who simply don't agree that a 30-06 bullets are magically stopped by human necks. And the story about a neck of steel like stopping the bullet is not about magic. The surgeon relayed, I forget who he was talking to. I don't know if it was Andrew or somebody else or Erica, whoever, but they asked about the bullet and stuff. And the surgeon noted that it was a miracle that it didn't go through Charlie and kill other people too. And then they said that he had a neck of steel, and not literally a neck of steel. It's just, a saying and something, a moment to comfort the family, to find a silver lining and still a way to give praise to God, even in the midst of this tragedy. And people have just like taken that and been so offended by it. And Charlie was very tall. He was also young. He's in his 30s, prime of his life. His bones were going to be strong. And bullets do start to do things, move and go in different trajectory and in places and stuff when they hit bone. So people who are, again, already acting like it for sure would have went through him, that's just not how it works. And there's a lot of variables and facts that you're missing that you're not entitled to, by the way. We're not entitled to every piece of information to be podcasted out to us during the murder investigation. And the trial is still a ways off. So we're not going to have all the information. But a 30-06 could have absolutely been stopped in the body. A lot of people who have hunted know that it doesn't always go through deer and other things. And it didn't go through it. MLK was shot by 30-06 too. So mocking this idea was magically stopped by human necks. They said it was a miracle that it was stopped by the neck. So you're mocking this idea that like people are like, I don't know about the actual physics of the bullet, but I do believe that God could have stopped the bullet if he wanted to. And I believe that's true as a Christian. But I think the physics could play a role in there too. So her mocking that God had a hand in this, and we all have to believe that God gave her dreams and she has all these vibes and visions and all that stuff. We're supposed to just trust all that stuff. But if a surgeon told the family, like, hey, it's a miracle that his neck of steel was able to stop this bullet from killing someone behind him, that's just too fishy for Candace Owens. The reality, Allie. Oh, let me back up a bit. Her saying the Bible part, trying to use Bible verses to tell people to ignore their intuition is demonic. I know people throw around that word a lot, but that's like snake in the garden demonic. Like your heart is deceitful. That's what the Bible says. Lean not to your own understanding is what the Bible says. If you have an intuition that's contrary to the word of God, and how you should act, and conduct yourself and investigate, and you're like, no, you have to go by your intuition, not use Bible verses. Well, my intuition or my let's say discernment, because those are different things, are telling me that Candace is bad news. That was wild. And I'm glad that a lot of Christians were perking up when they read that, because that is not how things are supposed to work. But this part, it gets way more wild. The reality, Allie, is that you have been open about the fact that you are part Jewish and you are being exceedingly tribal in this situation. The best proof for that tribalism is that even when Josh Hammer told one of the most disgusting lies in this entire saga, you were moved to do a video defending his character rather than calling a spade a spade. You don't care about truth. You care about defending what you perceive to be your side. So you took sides with him because you're a Jew. It's because you're a Jew that you stood up for him after I was accusing him of murder. You said Josh Hammer was a good person after he lied about Charlie's final 48 hours. That is naked tribalism for which you should be ashamed of yourself. There are no Bible verse needed for people to recognize that someone shamelessly lying about a man's thoughts and concerns before he died is nothing short of monstrous. And there is no friend to Charlie that wouldn't have been the moral clarity to at least call out such a deranged misrepresentation of the very real anxiety Charlie was going through in those final moments. So, mask off moment. A lot of people have defended Candace and they're like, no, she's just defending Israel. No, she's said things against Jews for a long time. And here she's attacking Allie's Jewish ancestry because her grandfather that she's never met, I guess, was Jewish. To try to disregard what she's saying. I see neo-Nazis do this on X all the time, or her just doing that on Instagram to Allie Stuckey was amazing. So in the video that I posted about this on TikTok, someone left a comment and said, I feel like we're talking about her too much. We are talking about her like way too much more than I would like, but and they felt like a lot of people who are watching her are left-wing people who like her content now because she's turning against all these people. And I said, I wish that was true. I wish that were true. I was hoping that that was true. That a lot, like I enjoyed the fact that some profiles I click on and I see, I'm like, oh, there goes the Palestinian flag, and oh, this person's from Pakistan. Unfortunately, I know people in real life. We're not close or anything. I've just met them. Um, at Republican, like normal Republican events, um, that are for Candace, that stand for Candace and think something's fishy, and they're into the conspiracies and so on, and they push back on my videos, and I have overlap with Candace fans, so I know people are sick of hearing about all this stuff. I've been writing about it and warning about it for a while. Even if people are gonna choose to pick her over me, then it's whatever. But I'm trying to convince people that she's bad news and is not really for the conservative movement in electing Republicans and all that. Like she's a danger to a lot of the things that we stand for. And she is spreading all these crazy lies that are just cruel to bring down Turning Point, whose sole mission it is to get young people engaged in conservative politics and thinking. You don't find that concerning? So I wish it was true that all these people are just left-wing people, tuning into Candace, and unfortunately that's just not the case. But I was talking to my sister about this earlier, and I think there's two things that actually really get under her skin and are a good way to make her crack, I guess. One way, I don't think she likes to be mocked. I think I know that she uses ridicule as a tool. There's something called the ridicule fallacy. There's different logical fallacies, and ridicule fallacy is one of them, where you don't really address the argument. You just kind of like, oh, that's so crazy. Like, oh, that's so crazy that they want us to do this, and then and they don't, they just act like it's a silly thing to, I guess, shame you out of having a logical conversation about stuff. Candace Owens will often, when she addresses criticisms from people who go after her, is that she will not straw man their position. She will she won't still man the position. She'll straw man it. So she'll present the argument not in the proper way, so she can tear it down. But she'll also present it like it's really hyper exaggerated, kind of crazy, and so on. And you'll hear the inflections of her voice change, and she'll present it really mockingly, and so on. So she uses mockery as a weapon, as a tool, but she doesn't enjoy it when people mock her. Like I know there was like Dave Chappelle talked about her, and she was into that and stuff like that. But she really didn't like it when everybody questioned her intelligence and mocked her intelligence when she talked about the Muslim quarters. When you go to Israel, there's like the Muslim quarters and Jewish quarters and stuff, just like kind of sections where people live. It's kind of like a Chinatown or whatever. And when she was talking to Ami Kozek about it, she brought up the Muslim quarters to make it sound like Israel was like living in Jim Crow era. And he's like, no, that's not where they have to live. That's just like where certain groups do live. As a matter of fact, when I went to Israel, our tour guide brought that up to mock Candace Owens. So she was a big joke about that. So she wasn't too fond of everybody making fun of her. And then she tried to claim that that was one of the reasons why people were like done with Israel, because they were all these people. She's like, all these people were making fun of me when I just asked a question. That's not what happened. She didn't even explain what happened accurately. She tried to accuse Israel basically being like Jim Crow because of the Muslim quarters, and she didn't realize that they're just neighborhoods where people live. Oh gosh, in the Jewish quarters, man, there were some steps, man, lots of steps. And then she also seems to be really irritated when the Babylon Bee mocks her. And she would go on about it for days and days and days. I think she really can't stand people not taking her seriously. I also believe that dealing with her in the way that Allie dealt with her with scripture, I knew that was going to bother her, and it definitely obviously did. As I started talking about this, though, I did have the thought that maybe it's just also Allie's status that also bothers her too, because Allie is a very popular podcast host, and her Relatable does very well. She has a high concentration of women who listen to her. She's had a lot of profiles and stuff on her. She has a pretty successful book, and I think she really could just kind of be intimidated by another, like a prominent female voice like that, gunning for her. Not really gunning, but just like correcting her and doing it so biblically, and her being triggered by it. So I think that's what's maybe also bothering her. And I think Erica's position obviously bothers her too, because she sure did talk about it. Like, oh, you can't be widowed into being a CEO. And I think that was another mask off moment. So there's a lot of people in the conservative movement who don't like not being the center of attention. And including like in areas where there's Black conservatives too, like they have to be the focus. Not that there can't be other like Black people around or whatever, but as far as the people taking up oxygen, she wants to take up a lot of that oxygen. So maybe it is like her just kind of also being intimidated by the fame of other folks around her. I heard a really good theory about her being just really kind of jealous of Charlie's status and his success, even though she has loads of success herself. But Charlie's also been martyred now, so she's never going to reach that sort of level of attention and notoriety that Charlie got. And the best she can do now is kind of tear him down. So in the meantime, what do we do? Honestly, I think the mockery is a good thing. It is a way that we point out the absurd. So if you're going to make memes, they can be please make sure they're truthful or whatever. But yeah, I would I think mockery is really gonna bug her. And also keep pointing out the scriptures and keep pointing out how some of the things she said were a violation, because there are people who claim to be Christian. You're going to argue with the Bible that she's doing something ungodly or advising people to do something ungodly, because it's pretty obvious. So anyway, that's all I got to say. I'm a little bit over today. That's okay. We're not going to go full 2 hours. Someone said, if Tyler's not guilty, why is he arrogant instead of scared? I think his arrogance shows his guilt. Yeah, and him not being remorseful. I don't think it's going to play well. Oh, thank you, Tina. I really hadn't had the comments on to. Thank you, Tina. Alfred Kinsey, that was his name. Thank you. About the who got that data chart and wrote that book. He also surveyed men in prison about their sexual habits and published it without disclosing their inmates to influence the public's opinion. That's true too. Man, if you want to be disturbed, watch some stuff on Kinsey. You can watch some stuff on Kinsey, man. If you dare. I want to enjoy my weekend, so I'm not going to do that today. Anyway, God bless you guys. Go to blackteeners.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. I did post the article about slavery and abortion and why I make those comparisons. And so I invite you guys to read it. It's kind of a long read. It's a good read though. I was like done with it and I was like, oh gosh, I had another portion to add because I thought of an objection. so just to summarize, I would like you guys to read the article, but people get angry at me when I make comparisons to abortion and slavery. I think people get so upset because they have the gift of hindsight and they view themselves as morally superior to their predecessors and their ancestors, and they just see it as being so awful and so terrible. But if they lived in 1852, they wouldn't see it as so awful and so terrible because they would be products of their culture, just like these people who support abortion are also products of their culture today. So they're offended that I would compare their golden calf of abortion to this heinous practice of slavery, because they don't want to see themselves. But a valid criticism, I suppose, or well, I'll say it's more thoughtful. I don't want to say it's valid. A more thoughtful criticism that some people will pose is they don't like the comparison because they feel that it minimizes the severity and brutality of slavery, and that I do understand that. I do want to point out that slavery was brutal and terrible. Not everyone had the same experiences like 12 Years a Slave. If you've seen that movie, oh my gosh. I watched it on an airplane for some reason. Oh, I hadn't seen it before, and I was curious about it, so I watched. It was a good movie. It was just really hard to watch people suffer and be treated like that, but and just terrible that it happened in history and it's based on a real story. But books like Uncle Tom's Cabin, when that came out, there are people who didn't believe it was true because it was so terrible. And so the author of the book had to come out with a follow-up book with documentation to prove like this inspiration that I got for this book is rooted in real events that have happened to people. They treat these slaves terribly. So there are people who didn't want to accept how bad people were being treated and how terrible it was. But that's the reality with abortion too. There are people who think I'm using emotional language when I describe what happens in an abortion, whether it's first trimester, second trimester, or third trimester. They get upset when you call it a baby. You're saying you're using this language to intuition pump and make people feel bad and all this stuff. And then they spread all this kind of propaganda as well. So abortion itself is a very terrible and brutal process. Obviously, it's done quickly. It doesn't erase the harm that is done just because it's done quickly, as opposed to living your full life as a slave. But I made the other point, though, that where there is life, there is hope. And I brought up that in the Bible, God told Abraham that I'm going to make you the father of many nations, but he also told him that his descendants were going to be slaves for 400 years. And he also told him that all nations would be blessed through his seed, which we get that with Jesus, right? So if Abraham was like, oh, that sounds really bad, I don't want my descendant to suffer like that. I'd rather just, be sterile and it just end with me or whatever, that obviously would not have been, one, been God's plan, but two, been good. Like, where there is life, there is hope. And the question that I often ask people is, who don't like this comparison and stuff, because I argue that abortion's worse than slavery, actually, but and they're like, well, how could you say that and believe that? And I'm like, would you have aborted Frederick Douglass to spare him the life of being a slave? And then they'll reply with, well, you don't think that there were slaves who tried to end their babies' lives so they wouldn't have to be a slave? And I said, well, if they did, that's sad, because they might have aborted a Frederick Douglass. And you trying to spare your child from a life of suffering, I guess I get the logic of that, but you could also be sparing your child from a life of liberation, family, and love. And every life that you take isn't just a life that you take. You're taking the lives of generations that could come through them. So abortion is there's a lot of societal harm in abortion. There different things occur, obviously, between slavery and abortion and so on. They're not the same thing exactly, but the ideology that legalizes both things I find to be very similar, and I made my case. So I recommend that you guys check that article at blacktnews.com. It's a good read. It's a bit of a long read, I think it's less than like 2,000 words, I think, but it's a good little essay. So I recommend that you guys check it out and trigger a lefty in your life today. So you guys can also check out books like, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion. And you guys can also check out my book, Bigger. I don't know if Tina's still in the chat or anything, but she is the artist of that book. And also she did the cover art for, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion. I'm going to have her, she has a website where she has a lot of cool prints and things. I'll have to have her write us up a code for coupons for black tea. If anyone would like any of her wonderful, wonderful art. Anyway, God bless you guys. And I will see you on Monday.